more effective on the glass, but unable to come up with that one. George pulls up from the elbow.
George the rebound. Conley front court. George fires up the 2.
Also, they want to keep the pace up. They think that's what's causing him to make all those fouls. He's in foul trouble right now with 4.
Get that turnover.
George crossing over, kind of putting on a clinic, then he steps back, and he scores over Barnes.
Bradley Beal can shoot, can attack the rim, score.
A long 2 for Paul George. After the game, he was just so shocked he couldn't even say the words 100. He was just smiling. No words were coming out.
El equipo de los Clippers suelta.
George gets his defender in his back pocket, hiccups into the paint, fades and fires and fills it up.
Had a game against Cleveland where he was in a tough spot after the first half. 6 for 6 in the ones.
No, don't do that.
You were.
No, don't do that.
What do you mean don't? There were others.
Here's George.
First half, first quarter player, so you got to do a good job on him early.
George. Another bucket. But I'm a believer in what Monty Williams is doing.
I love Monty, but
Paul George
made it look, really obvious, but he's picked it up to his credit.
That's Paul George. Screen from Zubac. George fires.
Absolutely beautiful.
Got to get stops.
Well, someone's got to help Joe.
Paul George, again the jumper.
Too much dribbling.
I know when you played with Pacers Stojakovic, he called that a Serbian layup from that distance.
Absolutely. Flamethrower right there.
Paul George.
So despite all these turnovers, Clippers playing them even in the third quarter. Grant. He's got so many tricks in his bag. Let it fly for 2.
The clocks. George feeling it for 3. Got it.
Changed the game if that ball would have fallen the rim.
O'Neal picks up Paul George right to left, takes a deep 3.
Defense, he's found a home there in San Antonio. Not like he didn't have one before, but he's playing so much better than he has.
There's George, 1-point lead for the Thunder, just under 3 remaining in this first half. George picked up on a switch by Capella, goes right at it, and pops it.
On the floor to be able to attack, especially when this Oklahoma City Thunder team is in the penalty.
George looking like George. 2 clubs, well, the 2 franchises met on opening night 35 years ago, and I mentioned Jack Sigma with 32 points to lead the way.
Reverse pivot, Marv. Back Sigma.
Only 9 wins for Chicago, but they are a top 10 defensive team. George tests that out right far.
The separation. Paul George will have something
To make plays for his teammates, finding them in basket cut situations.
Paul George just get a driver.
There you go.
Paul George.
Some of that aggressive.
LeBron and Kawhi start off defending each other. What a welcome sight for fans.
Beverly. Foul line jumper for another great rebound. Paul George.
George on Ferguson. That's a tough
Now that's a couple of pit bulls going at it. Paul George. Paul George, pull-up jumper.
Justamente ese talento después de que pues lo lograra.
Potential 3-point play. George, step back jumper is good. The duo.
Tough-minded defensive program, but I never saw him as an NBA player.
Paul George knocks it down.
George, late in the clock, going to have to call his own number. Stops at the foul.
This time shoots over him, this time knocks it down.
George back in. George right to his spot. Boom.
Now, can Felton move this team where they get high percentage moves?
Going to get some help here from Paul George working against James.
Good defense by LeBron.
Throws it up. It's been that type of day.
Not finish. The rookie Juwan Evans out of Oklahoma State. Here's George. Will it count? Will it get? Yes, it will. He had it gathered.
Pelosha Pulls it back out, reset. The Paul George. Westbrook spreads the floor. George slaps away the hand of O'Neal and a whistle.
And Westbrook wants to push here. George dancing. That time he's in a drive.
Shot there by Beal, his third make, 6 points with 4 rebounds. George will dance final seconds over Uber.
George pulls up at the foul line. Got it! And the Clippers are top.
Guys that are motivated to really come out here and play well today.
The step away from Paul.
No me estás diciendo. Bueno, anyway, ahí está el disparo.
In February. This is the last game in February. Is George.
Losing streak. Only New Orleans with a longer active losing streak. They've lost 11 as George
moves to his left.
You like this matchup if you Paul George.
Does he? A couple of assists, couple of rebounds. George, long two, dials it in. Now the 150 scored. George, foul line jumper, good. And
Westbrook just 5 of 17 from the floor in this game. George sizing up Mitchell. He has 2 more.
Sizing up describes it.
The other part about Mitchell, too, for no animosity, no jealousy that form. That's usually a pitfall when a rookie is dominating the way that Mitchell had during parts of this season. George, he's got it.
The level at which he plays in terms of the activity level, he plays it no matter what the minute is, the point of it.
He's on the Utah bench with 4 personal fouls. Actually, I believe he has 5 personal fouls. Beg your pardon, you are correct, sir. And that's Favors with 4. That's going to keep him on the bench. George the runner.
And now
point offensively. Yeah, he averages 14 points a game, but he doesn't. He gets them on rolls, gets them on tip-ins, and doesn't want the ball in his hands. Just wants to go out and play.
And Paul George get to extend the possession. George, contested foul line jumper,
allowing 128 points a game during that stretch. As Paul George.
Controversies we've been seeing. Kawhi Leonard.
Paul George joining
action. Attacking the rim. JJ Redick doing what he does best. Drew Holiday doing what he does.
George from 15 cans the jumper. Paul George pull-up jumper is good.
And just using those young legs to get out in transition as George hits him
on the road, although they did hold a very dynamic.
He's doing it. He's shooting 40%. There's George out front. He drills his 3 and gets fouled. PG-13. That's FIBA. You can't do that. OKC leading by a point. George against Tucker. Drew the foul.
And one! Layup, but the Knicks are in a transition period. Going with the youth movement as George has Cornette out on the perimeter, pulls up for the mid-range, and that is good. For
run like that?
No, absolutely not. Let him get a little bit below. Look, foul line down this guy. Who can stop this guy in the slip?
Paul George with a lot of sauce and sizzle on the money. Sixers back up by 2. George with the step back 3. Got it.
Well, like we said.
In the Western Conference right now, the boy is it bunched up. 5.5 games separate teams 1 through 8. George with 2 to fire. Nice shot.
The Thunder last year averaging 28 per game. Portland swept the Thunder. In fact, as George nailed.
And just get drives to the bucket now. George and Barnes.
See what Paul George decides to do here. Wants the shot.
George working against Hart.
I'll tell you, Hart.
Over Hart. Yeah. Boy, great contest, but a better shot.
Tested 3.
It's good defense by Steven Adams. He had to come out there and challenge that shot by Bradley Beal.
George crosses over and then...
And he wants Roberson to go up and play high-low.
George with the pull-up over Crowder. Man!
Paul George, pull-up jumper.
Justamente ese talento después de que pues lo lograra.
Potential 3-point play.
George, step back jumper is good. The duo.
Tough-minded defensive program, but I never saw him as an NBA player.
Paul George knocks it down.